Hello and welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy Podcast. My name is Jed and we are in the Meno today. Yesterday we did a bit of a review of, thumbs down. The computer wanted to do more than a review. We explored analogy and some key terms in analogy, specifically hyparxis and anagogic, which is using analogy to move upward to higher states of being. Hyparxis is the highest aspect of something, the pinnacle, the solution to whatever level you're on before you can evolve to the next level. And the unique thing about hyparxis is it follows analogy. It lives in both worlds, you could say. It has one version as the peak of the lower version, but it's also the bottom of the next level of reality, or the next level of whatever system that you're exploring. This applies to everything, but for us, it's specifically levels of reality. Because as human beings and philosophers on the quest,
I'm looking for someone to share in an adventure.
The quest to know ourselves, know reality, and master understanding and language, the logos. On that quest, we're interested in perceiving ourself and how ourself is reflected through all levels of reality. Human beings are born into this three-dimensional sense perception reality, but there are many people over history, including Socrates and other philosophers, who realize, clearly there are principles being followed in the physical world that are eternal, whereas nothing in the physical world is eternal. Therefore, there must be at least one other dimension of reality that is more primary, more real, more causal, has scope that we can access and understand. This is super, super important because we don't get knowledge in the physical world. We have beliefs. And in the midwifery book, at the time of recording, we were exploring the 6 different kinds of beliefs. Just a little bit of a refresher. Axiom at the top, which is interesting given what we've been talking about just now. Scientific beliefs, which have sufficient evidence. Simple beliefs, insufficient evidence. Supernatural beliefs, there can be no evidence. Prejudice beliefs, there is evidence to show that you're wrong. And pathologos beliefs, there are evidence to show that you're wrong, but you are unable to see it or relate to it, and it will confuse you and you'll get defensive. And then, the responses themselves too can be understood. So while there are 6 classes of beliefs, that can be hierarchically arranged from the most terrible, the pathologos, to prejudice, to supernatural, to simple, to scientific, to axioms. There's definitely clearly a hierarchy. Well, what about the responses of people in the pathologos who are, again, they're not in control of their life, they can't reach their destiny, they're stuck in fate. The pathologos belief, remember, it can't respond to evidence. You can't reason someone out of it. So it wasn't built on evidence. Prejudice, you can. Leave your small town, you start to realize, with this new evidence and experience, I can challenge my prejudice beliefs. Pathologos, of course, are unsuspected. But the pathologos has to function to silence that which it considers to be a threat to its existence. Remember, we are zombies. It's a parasite in our psyche. It has us. We don't have it. Which is a fascinating state of affairs that we can explore about the nature of humanity and how it might differ from other species and how it might relate to evolution and these guys, the dinosaurs, and how we didn't really have to deal with them. Nevertheless, there is a negative response to that which challenges their unsuspected pathologos. And those threats you could maybe put into a class of 6 as well. What happens when you act like that? Ignored? Then mocked? then maybe ganged up on, threatened, kicked out, exiled, murdered, as Socrates was. So a kind of hierarchy, but in a negative sense. We haven't got to that part of the book yet, but it's important to acknowledge because these are the blocks, the hurdles that we face on this quest.
I'm looking for...
These are the hurdles that we have to overcome. Within ourselves, we might ignore our understanding or not trust our understanding that we're developing. We might, and then so threaten ourselves or think we're no good or all that, but also from others. So that's where we are in the Philosophical Midwifery book. Sorry about that, I had to pause for a second. So, we're talking about philosophical midwifery that we've been doing in the meantime and acknowledging that there are different classes of belief. That is how we perceive the objects which are within the realm that is perceptible through belief. What does that mean? Well, you have ears, and ears can't see objects, but they can hear things. So physical objects, you could say, are in the realm of perception based on hearing. Whereas you see light. No, you don't see light, you see color. So color is within that which is knowable by your eyes or perceivable by your eyes. So too, that which happens in the physical world, perceived through the senses, are objects of belief. And we can climb that ladder of belief to better ones that are more backed with reason, evidence, and of course, along the way, we have to do what we, every step of the way, we have to also be doing philosophical midwifery. Why? Well, it's what we're here for. How do we know that? Well, it's the only activity that removes your pathologos false beliefs that cause your fundamental human problems and keeps you trapped in cycles of repeating failures, negative states of mind, and suffering that you can't pull yourself out of through reason and evidence, like the other kinds of beliefs. You have to go to its root cause. Because it wasn't, is this?
The problem is that you can't reason someone out of a position that they didn't reason themselves into.
Because of that, it wasn't reasoned into. It was an imitation, and we have to review, we have to discover it first of all, and then review it with our understanding of the logos, which we are also learning from Socrates here. He's teaching us how to do it, to free ourselves from our blocks and our fate. If it restricts us to one kind of response, one kind of state of mind in certain scenarios, then you're fated. You can't do anything else. You're not open to anything else. You can't reach your highest goals, and you can predict exactly how your life's going to turn out. Fate. We want to free ourselves from fate to discover our highest purpose, our destiny. So, and as such, what we are reading here now is Socrates helping us understand how learning and excellence plays into that development. Because while these are the classes of belief, what we have been talking about now is knowledge, that which you can know, or that which confirms what you've been believing or developing through understanding. Of course, between belief and knowledge, there is the method we're learning now, understanding. How do you read without interpretation? How do you pull out the relevant pieces? How do you arrange them? How do you organize them according to their hierarchical structure, such that you can understand? That's the dialectic that we're learning together, which is the method for, again, when applied to midwifery, you can remove your pathologos, but when the dialectic is applied to truth, it has the potential to draw us out of our sense-based belief beliefs, thumbs up again, into nous, or to perceive not through your physical senses, but through the eye of the soul. What's something called ousia in Greek. So what? Well, that's important for us because we want to know what we are. We don't want to believe someone else. We want to confirm our understanding in our own experience as well. We see through our understanding and we confirm our understanding in knowledge. Now, the tricky part is this has been cut out of education since the Dark Ages, since the Christian Emperor Justinian shut down the academy, burned the libraries, banned reading, began the Dark Ages, and tried to replace understanding, knowledge, and above with the lowest kind of beliefs. Supernatural beliefs, actually. Second, fourth lowest. But also keeping us enslaved and enchained in our own pathologos, which is what leaders manipulate. So if you have a Hitler type of person, and he acts in a similar way to the German parents at the time, people will think, well, this must be true, this must be good, this must be wise, this must be knowledge, this must be virtue. Trump is not the same as Hitler, well, same in that area, but a different kind of person that appeals to certain people. If they haven't removed their pathologos, he might reflect their own parental way of tyranny. Again, it's the opposite. The pathologos is the inversion of virtue. So what we've been reading in the text, it's called aphronesis, or anti-logos. And you function as a kaka daemon, a bad daemon. You use language not to help people develop in the way we're doing, but you use it to crush, hurt, harm, silence people. That's the kaka daemon. And that's the way of being that characterizes where we are in history right now. We have leaders that are acting as kaka daemons. They are motivated by false pathologos and prejudice beliefs and supernatural beliefs about what's good that is wrong and harmful. And they don't have a logos or the logos, and they don't practice the art of midwifery to remove themselves. So they're walking dangerous zombies. That's our world. It's where we are too. It's where how we grew up. So what we're doing is learning the next step from Socrates, and of course, learning and practicing midwifery to free ourselves. And this is interesting because Socrates has already pointed out that Meno hasn't learnt the dialectic, which means he's trapped in beliefs. And if he hasn't learnt the logos to address his pathologos, he might even be trapped in irrational pathologos beliefs. Whereas Socrates made it clear, by the way, if you're asking whether or not virtue can be taught, really you're talking about truth or being, which is a kind of remembering, which is why we learn the dialectic, which is why Socrates is asking, not telling Meno the answers, he's asking him questions, getting him to be curious, so he can come to learn and use the dialectic for himself, and then verify it in, if he stays in the game and he's doing midwifery too, in enlightenment. Or enlightenment's a funny word some people use. We don't really use it in philosophy because it's, I don't know, makes it sound like it's, I don't know, weird, I don't know. But you can call it enlightenment, the enlightenment experience. Or you can just call it what it is, nous, or mind knowing itself, ousia, which is what education really is, because we know that experience. That's why we can remember it and re-experience it. Which will allow you to understand rationally through the logos, through a rational, ordered system that you can prove and verify for yourself. And as it's the archetype of all models, you can prove it. You can discover it anywhere. Maybe you're learning music. You can discover how the same analogies and order and pattern and structure and logos is behind music too. Whatever you're interested in. As it's the archetype or the paradigm of all paradigms, of all models, of all systems of hierarchically ordered terms within reality. Let's say it that way. Which is cool, so you can understand. So enlightenment isn't mystical. You don't have to give all your money or shave your head or wear a robe or only eat fruit. That's bullshit. Or I mean, I'm going to take that back. It's not bullshit if you like it, but it's not necessary and it's not related. But that's the thing with understanding. If you have gone through this far and you have gotten to this stage in our reading, then you'll never be duped. Doesn't matter how fancy the big hat is that the Pope or the rabbi wears, you're not going to fall for the shit because you see for yourself. Whenever they say, and here's a key word, just believe or just have faith, you can laugh at them. And then use your words. Oh, by the way, do you know that you are being a kakademon? In principle, by vilifying understanding, logos, truth, which is the very thing we're here to learn and master, and is the very vehicle for spiritual enlightenment and to understand and know the divine that you claim to be the expert on, because that's your family and that's your big funny hat. And maybe you killed a bunch of Palestinians who tried to talk back to you, but that doesn't make you know the divine, does it? And in fact, anyone who says, just believe me, bro, they are fucking with you. Whether they know it or not, they're acting harmfully. Because we need to transition out of beliefs into understanding, because that's the method through which we free ourselves from fate, and it's the method through which we can discover truth, which is universal, which is beneficial, which puts an end to genocide and wealth inequality and corruption and all of the kinds of problems that happen if you're not using understanding and you're not using the model of pure knowledge or nous. Because pure knowledge or nous, as we've been reading, as we've been following from Socrates, is the model, or is where, it is the model, but it's also where justice exists, eternally, knowably, understandably. Which is why in the Republic he says you have to have this experience if you want to be just. Because what's your paradigm? And we can fill in the answer. Your parents. Copying how your parents looked when they pretended they were lying, they were bullshitting you. Even your parents, yes, even yours, because it's a human quality. This is not a blame game. Humans, when they are in a position of authority, as parents, will set up the scenario, set up this, as we've been reading, set up the conditions and the scene where they pretend to be wise, but crush yourself, your mind, your goals, and your use of logos and understanding to reach your highest purpose or destiny. That's everyone. It's part of being a human being. Which is interesting because we also live in a system where the people in power try to pretend that mistakes that we are here to learn from are excuses to inflict punishment, which is also an excuse just to steal shit from you. Oh look, there's a Hamas terrorist that the Jewish state funded and supported and propped up and allowed to do the things that it did to create a problem, to facilitate a reaction. And then the solution is, well, we must punish them to teach them a lesson. And the way I'm going to punish them is take all their stuff and kill them all and torture them. Oh, I'll throw a few crumbs to the foot soldiers and let them play out their pathologos on babies as they murder and torture them too. That's the human condition where we're enslaved to the ignorance and absurdity of our pathologos until we learn the logos, which is why we're here. And a fantastic demonstration of that is our friend Meno, who thinks he knows, thinks he should be leader, is from the best families, is from wealth, is well connected with other states too. And he thinks it's virtuous to hurt people he doesn't like. Good to your friends, harm your enemies. Which is exactly the statement of ignorance that is parroted by the terrible people doing, well, justifying punishment, really. Instead of actually understanding the cause of problems and fixing them, no. Let's just hurt people. Pretty fucked. But that's why we're reading Midwifery. Again, the author of the Midwifery book realized this while fighting the literal Nazis. He was walking down the road to fight the Nazis, and he realized, I think it was in Italy, this is the same road the Romans walked down to fight their barbarians. So why is it that
no one seems to be learning or growing or addressing actual problems?
Why is it that no one seems to be learning or growing or addressing actual problems? And he understood it, figured it out, and we are very happy. It's the only form of psychotherapy that's been empirically validated by a study and trial, so that's noteworthy. One of the time that I came across it, I was interested in psychology, and I was shocked to find there's only one model of actually helping people. And then the more I studied, the more it became obvious, oh no shit, these shrinks don't know anything. They're just projecting their own personal beliefs about this and that. And getting you to relive the same traumatic experience without introducing any dialectic or understanding that allow you to approach it in a new way, understand why you have your problems, understand why you have it as a soul, and solve it. It isn't available. Until now. So tell your friends, tell your loved ones, tell your co-workers about philosophical midwifery. Otherwise, you'll fall into the camp that Meno is in. You might fall into that camp, which is he is unable to listen to Socrates. He is unable to learn the dialectic. He's unable to understand anything. Even his definition of virtue is just pointing to things he likes. I like it when women are controlled by men. I like it when I have slaves. I like it when I use my wealth and privilege to hurt people I disagree with. Yes. True to this day, Meno. Fortunately, Socrates isn't just talking to Meno, he's talking to us. And we are doing philosophical midwifery so we can listen to Socrates and learn how to learn. Learn what learning is. A kind of remembering. Learn the method for doing it, the dialectic, which includes not just your own, but sharing it, just as Socrates is using the dialectic to guide his questions and answers in the conversation. The exact opposite of debate, where it's win-lose. Dialectic is only ever win-win. Anyone who tries to present solutions that are win-lose is stupid and ignorant. How many babies need to be murdered to create a just society? I'll answer that for you. 0 babies. It won't be a just society otherwise. And someone might say, well, I can't imagine a way of doing it. Try harder. Do more midwifery. Follow the logos. It's there. Follow the logos. An example I use to demonstrate this is on TV. There used to be a TV show called Cesar Millan, the Dog Whisperer. I think he's a Mexican guy. He would rehabilitate bad dogs of celebrities on TV. It was really, really fun and cool. Now, at the same time, or around the same time, there was a British equivalent called the Dog Nanny, a lady in England. Now, the difference is sometimes the lady would say, this dog can't be helped. We have to murder the dog. And that was very disturbing because Cesar Millan didn't do that. The lady thought the limit of her understanding was the objective limit of everything. She couldn't relate to any evidence beyond her limit of ignorance or limit of understanding. Whereas someone like Caesar Milan didn't have to murder dogs because he had better understanding. Notice the dog nanny blamed the dogs and murdered the dogs. Socrates isn't blaming Meno and murdering Meno. Caesar Milan isn't blaming the dogs and murdering the dogs. That's the difference. A level of certainty that I haven't seen it, so this is a good thing for philosophy. People often say, how can you know God? I don't know it, so therefore no one can know it. I don't know it, my dad doesn't know it, and my priest tells me it's not knowable. So what? What about Socrates? What about Plotinus? What about Plato? What about thousands of people who've had mystical experiences? That's ignorance. So where you draw the line is what we're looking for. Ourselves to discover our blocks so we can overcome them through midwifery and philosophy, but also in this book we're reading now. Because Meno drew a line somewhere, and Anytos drew a line somewhere, and the slave boy, he's a character in the book, drew a line somewhere. They're all different. So who's right? Oh, Socrates. No line is right. No line is right. At what point do you determine the logos doesn't apply? At what point do you determine there's nothing understandable or knowable beyond this, and there's nothing good or providential beyond this? Because that's your block. So what? So we've already seen that Socrates is showing us what we need to do for ourselves, and we have to demonstrate it the way he is. To learn, which is what? Remembering. Remembering what? Nous. In English, we call that the experience of knowledge, but it's the experience of being. So what we talked about, ears hear sound, eyes see color. Ousia or nous, the eye of the soul, perceives pure being. Pure being. Now, the question on the table for us is, if the aspects of virtue like justice and courage and things are in pure being, allowing it to be distributed to everyone. Anyone can be courageous. Anyone can be justice, because it's not a physical thing you have to hoard the same way people stuck in appearances, beliefs, and the physical world spend their whole life trying to hoard wealth or hoard resources. You don't hoard this. It's unhoardable. It's true. It's universal. It's eternal. It will always be there. But we're not after, and Socrates says, hang on a second, we didn't ask whether part of virtue is learnable or rememberable through the dialectic. We want all of virtue. We want the complete excellence of the human being. Therefore, we are left with the question, how do we know something which is even higher, even more primary, even more real than the object of knowledge? How do you know that which transcends knowledge? The self, the one self, the good self. We also have another question. Hang on a second. If we're looking for the virtue or excellence, the natural innate excellence that we can have as a human being, what would that be like? The word given to it is phronesis, the state of being of the one self. But also there is a kind of functioning, a way of being and a way of functioning. So we were talking about the pathologos keeps you chained to fate, specifically because it gives you one state of mind. Whenever you're in the situation, you always act this way. It's difficult for us to recognize for ourselves because that's the puzzle. That's why we're here, to solve that puzzle. But you'll recognize it with others, your friends, celebrities, maybe. The one way of being, one state of mind, and the one action or functioning. Therefore, you could predict their whole life. They'll repeat the same thing over and over again, and they won't learn, and they can't learn. That's fate. That's fate. That's why
no one seems to be learning or growing or addressing actual problems.
And how we solve this
The
problem.
problem is that you can't reason someone out of a position that they didn't reason themselves into.
And if you are doing what we're doing here, midwifery and philosophy, or the dialectic, not the way people think philosophy is, but the real philosophy, this, then we can free ourselves from fate to discover a way of being that's the opposite. And we call that virtue, or excellence, or phronesis. Phronesis describes the state of being. Now, you could say that's the state of mind, but if mind is being, then it's a state of being of self beyond even a state of mind. So maybe you'd be able to recognize the different states of mind you go through, because even the highest state of mind, or the enlightenment experience of nous, doesn't last all day. In fact, that's the goal, right? The goal is to prolong those experiences of knowing yourself as pure mind. Not the self, but mind. Prolong that experience, because that's our object of focus for the first level of metaphysics, the first level of philosophy. We want to know what beauty is in the symposium. We want to know what justice is in the republic. They exist in that realm of being, or nous. So, can you see the symmetry? And that's what we look for. We look for symmetry. That's how we hunt for the logos. In that the pathologos, one state of mind, one way of functioning. Doesn't matter how many times you have this conversation with this dude about this thing, he will always be in the same state of mind and will always respond in the same way. Predictably so. And then he'll teach a similar thing to his kids because he thinks it's real. He doesn't even know it's false, blah, 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 blah. Whereas the opposite, what we're looking for, what would it be? How about the ability to function in an infinite amount of ways, such that you can see and function through that which is most appropriate for the circumstances, without having to plan ahead of time? Wouldn't that be a higher level of freedom? That state of being is described more in the midwifery book we read recently at the end of chapter 2. A state of being fully present, acting with the full force of your being without having to think or plan beforehand, most appropriately for the situation. And add to that without any anxiety or doubt before or after, while pursuing your highest, most meaningful goal. That state of being, sometimes called the ideal of the samurai, or in the zone, or in flow state. Lots of names for it. But it's a state of being where you can authentically choose any number of responses appropriate for the situation. And if you've ever seen Pierre Grimes do philosophical midwifery, you'll see he responds differently to every person, but most appropriately for what they need, which is artfulness. A doctor responds most appropriately for their patient and what the patient can respond to and what the patient needs, not himself. Which is interesting, because most people think life is just about finding situations where you can cosplay the knower, having kids so I can pretend to be wise and I know, etc. Becoming a petty tyrant in capitalism. I'm the boss, so I tell you what's right and wrong, you got to obey me. This dictatorship, this tyranny of capitalism, fascism, all of these systems of relating to each other through oppression and violence and punishment and blame, all baby brain shit, is nothing other than excuses to put yourself in a position where you can crush others the same way your parents crushed you. Because that's the peak. That's enlightenment. You can't get any better than that, because when we were kids, the model of beauty and justice wasn't from the Republic and the Symposium, it was from Mum and Dad. And they were ignorant and lying. Pierre Grimes talked about how even Pierre Grimes, the founder of midwifery, responded in a similar way to his son when he was young. It's part of the fabric of the world we've been born into. It's not an excuse to blame people or feel bad about yourself. If you do, then you're just on a slippery slope to the next step. What happens after you blame? We looked at that in midwifery. You can justify the tyranny that you're seeking through your pathologos, but you're not seeking it. You're not in control of your life. Remember, you only had one response and you didn't pick it. You came to the false conclusion yourself without words. That's so we have the power to release ourselves. We don't need anyone else. We can do it ourselves. Well, with our community, of course, with the midwife, we can free ourselves from our false conclusion because we made it. But we don't know it's there. We don't pick it. Maybe our soul picked it beforehand, but right now you can't blame me for my pathologos. I didn't pick it. I wouldn't pick it if I had a choice. My parents, if they knew the implications of the pathologos they were passing on to me, they wouldn't do it to me either. They knew that they were doing it. They don't know why they're doing it, and they're unaware of the implications as well. That's why we read and learn and do what we do. So, infinite possibilities of choice in any situation. Compared to the pathologos, only one. And the pathologos comes with one state of mind. Similar, what's the state of balloons? What's the state of mind that accompanies our highest excellence or virtue? Phronesis. Now, it's not a state of mind, which is the puzzle we have right now. So that's where we're at. What is the state of mind that is beyond the highest state of mind? Or what's the state of self, we might say instead? How do we know it and make it ours forever? Not just in this lifetime, but when we separate from our body in meditation, let's say, or even in sleep, in dreams? Can we still function as our most authentic self then? When we cark it at the end of this lifetime? Can we take that state of being and the skill or the functioning with us? Nurture, there's a nurturing of the soul or way of being and a skill. And Socrates says that's what we're doing here, learning those two things. So a kind of learning that we're here for, and we must be here for because it's the only thing we can take with us out of the physical world, which we know we're going to leave at some stage. And if you're doing philosophy, and hopefully you've left many times, because that's meditation. And in the Phaedo, that's the exercise of philosophy. Because you're going to be doing the dialectics even better if you're not stuck in your physical body. It has distractions, tangents. And while we are in our physical body, we do what we can to focus on what's true, and not the shapes and colors and gossip that might flash in front of our eyes in the transitory world of becoming in the physical world. That's the training we're looking for. Such that doesn't matter what flashes in front of your eyes, you're still in self, and you're still functioning through the dialectic, and you're still wondering about the true nature of self. To the point where the most flashing, the most colorful, the most blissful experience, the most real and blissful and profound and illuminating and beautiful and just experience possible, nous, turning your mind around to experience itself completely, even that flashing in front of your experience won't distract you from the state of being of phronesis and its way of functioning. And that's why we read both books. We have fun illuminating more of the philosophy text by reading the midwifery text and realizing they're just inversions. One is a shadow of this one. So every insight we have here, we can help understand the Meno, which is what we're doing now. So we can, we're getting close to the end of the book. So we can see, hang on a second, did Meno change his mind? Did Anytos change his mind? Did they become better? They were talking to the wisest man ever, Socrates. So if they didn't, there's a puzzle for us. But seeing the dynamics of that relationship and a block to the logos and dialectic, even from Socrates, Seeing those dynamics is something we can do because of what we're doing in midwifery. See how they work together? Hooray.
It's a win-win. A win-win-win-win-win. There's so many good clippable moments.
Yeah, there's so many good clippable moments in our journey to our destiny. So one we could call destiny, our highest way of functioning, and one we call fate. Now, what Socrates has also given us in the Meno is a description, not a description, but a word for that state of being beyond even mind, but also a way of functioning. Remember, one way of functioning, one state of mind when you're trapped in fate. What's the ideal way of functioning attached to human virtue or human excellence? I'll pause for you to think of the answer, and I'll play some thinking music. We looked at it last time, didn't we? The daemon. The good daemon. Now, what's interesting is, as human beings, and we're moving towards that functioning to function as a good daemon, the excellence of being a human. We talked about looking at physical examples as analogy to move upwardly, anagogic movement. Let's look at, let's say, a doctor functioning artfully, not for his benefit, but for his subject, appropriate to the circumstance. All these sorts of things. The art of the doctor. Now, what about the art of the logos? You're not creating the health and excellence of the body, but of the soul. So that's an example of looking at our physical world, looking at what's the hyparxis, what's the highest level of functioning a human can be. Well, it seems to be kind of like doctors, I suppose. But doctors and professional athletes, doctors moving you from sickness to health, and professional athletes going from health to the highest excellence. Okay, if that's as far as we can get, or the hyparxis in our world, does that have an analogical variation, so some same, some different, in the world of, well, the next level up, mind? We've got two words that point to these things. The movement from sickness to health, or philosophical midwifery, is called purification by Socrates. And the movement from health to excellence, or what we're reading here, philosophy, is the movement from health to excellence. Now, if you haven't done that first stage, you looked for excellence, you looked for artfulness, you looked in the world for who are the human beings who have the best mind and the best heart. If that's not what has been drawing your attention, you've still got some work to do. You got to solve the puzzle of this physical world to reach the hyparxis and take it analogically to move to the next dimension, which is applying it analogically, as a doctor is to a midwife, as a personal trainer is to philosophy, the dialectic. So what? Well, right. So that's where we are. We've got a clue. Oh, and by the way, because we're doing both, Socrates is not just defining, but demonstrating what it's like to be functioning as a eudaimonia, or a good daemon. He's also doing division and giving us what we need for our synthesis and conclusion so we can finish the dialectic. But we know that we're looking for dialectics. We're looking for half-finished dialectics so we can finish it because it's for us. It's our game. We're looking for half-completed analogy so we can complete the analogy. At the end of chapter 2 in the midwifery book, we got one. What's the difference between the worst human being and the wisest? Well, one doesn't know... Well, hang on. I'll quote it directly. Because this is a fantastic example of analogy in learning. Because if learning isn't repeating beliefs, but a kind of remembering that gets triggered when you are trying to aim for your excellence, you're not passive, you're trying to be your highest, then you have to engage. One way of doing that is a teacher like Socrates will give an incomplete analogy. So I'm just going to read the last section of chapter 2, which we just finished, of the midwifery book. The only difference between the wisest and worst of us is that one doesn't know one's premises are false, and so acts out the implications of one's ignorance and fails to comprehend that one's life is determined within fixed boundaries. So those four will have an analogical equivalent to, what's the question? The only difference between the worst and the wisest is one does this. What about the wisest? That's for you to do. See? So we're looking for incomplete analogies. We're looking for incomplete dialectics so we can solve the puzzle. That's the Sherlock Holmes part of the mystery. Luke Skywalker has to solve the puzzle of how to get into the Death Star and that kind of thing.
I'm looking for someone to share in an adventure.
And I point to mythology because the hero's journey, or the archetype or paradigm behind all mythology and media, good ones, it's the same thing. Of course it is if the dialectic and the logos exist at every level, allowing us to understand the ignorance of pathologos. So even our irrational behavior of pathologos is understandable because the logos even emanates down to that. I mean, it's the lowest expression of the logos, of course, but we can understand beliefs, prejudice, supernatural beliefs, simple beliefs, scientific beliefs, and axiom. We can understand understanding, dianoia, dialectic. We can even understand knowledge. That's metaphysics. Applying understanding to justice, beauty, whole, part, same, different. All of the self-ers, terms you can apply the self to because they exist eternally in being. And the logos, and if, therefore, we can conclude that if even being is intelligible, then one of the aspects of being is beauty, one is justice. One of these aspects of being is its intelligibility, or logos. So logos filters through even being. So how far does the logos go up? Beyond being, to our question, what is the excellence or virtue of the self? A state of self that we call phronesis, and a way of functioning like the good daemon, eudaimonia. How do we get there? That's our question. Right, and also yesterday we talked about we talked about analogy, this upward movement, or anagogic, that's another word, movement through analogy. We talked about the hyparxis that allows for that upward movement, and we talked about scope. Whatever is right at the top. So we could say maybe logos has a scope over beauty. And I can ask you this question. If you experience being as beauty or justice, which is more primary or more hierarchically higher? Does beauty have to be just? Does justice have to be beautiful? Whatever has the scope over both is higher. So if you can't be beautiful without being well ordered to justice. Wait. You can be just without being beautiful. So just is higher before beauty, but you can't be beautiful without being just. Then we could say justice is more hierarchically higher. So that's where we're trying to move up through in our experience of being, or our understanding. And the reason is scope, because the higher has scope over the others. That's what we talked about last time. So, who has scope over the characters? Who is able to relate to all of the characters in the book we're reading today? And Socrates, and this is important as well, because Socrates is pointing out, hey, we talked about the virtues like courage, but if you're not coordinated with your intellect and you just charge the army on your own without thinking, that's not courage, that's foolishness, or he called it false confidence or audacity. Kind of like the false confidence of Meno and Anytos. But he said, by the way, you know what has scope over both your functioning in the physical world and intellect, or nous, or ousia, or being? The good self. Phronesis. So the functioning of that way of being, our destiny, our excellence, has scope over everything else, including the enlightenment experiences, which is neat, because maybe you'll have a friend who is an enlightened Taoist mystic, and the highest that's ever been in the tradition. Well, you will still have scope. You'll be able to ask him questions about his state of mind, his experience, whether it's intelligible, whether he's understood it, whether he's blocked from understanding it because he hasn't done midwifery yet, and what's higher than it that is presupposed even by that experience. Like, what's the cause of it? Cause. What's the necessary principle behind it that has to pre-exist? Precondition. What's having the experience? Experiencer. I don't know. How would you summarize that kind of question? But these are the questions that you could ask, as Socrates is doing to us. And that's where we're on, because the last thing we read was a summary of where we're at. And knowing those terms, we can understand how and why Socrates is able to talk to Meno at one level, Anytos at the different level, and us at a much higher level. Because the words, it seems to be, the words he's using are words that he is picking self-er terms that necessarily have the scope. So just because Meno might be blocked or Anytos might be blocked doesn't mean we are. And that's important, because unless we understand the principles behind it, we could be just interpreting or projecting. Whereas we can understand how it might work, but again, we don't know. We carry it as a hypothesis and see, as we continue to learn and grow and get better every day, which of the hypothesis pans out. Was Socrates really communicating at a multi-dimensional level that he is able to do because of the principle of analogy that runs through all things? And because he is functioning at a higher level and therefore has scope? And he is using that state of being and perspective to function in the best possible way, daemon, a good daemon, by asking questions of the dialectic, which allows us to move to the hyparxis of the level we're at, and then analogically understand the next level that we find ourselves in and begin that journey? Or is he just talking to Anytos only? Two hypotheses. Carry both. I know where I'm leaning. But also because I've been in conversations with, Pierre Grimes. My goodness, one of the... a quick personal anecdote. I'll play a little jingle.
Where's the joy? Where's the whimsy? Where's the childlike wonder, dude?
Well, one of my joyous, whimsical, childlike wonder moments was when I went to visit Pierre Grimes in California, and he would have these like mid-morning brunch garden party things, just like really casual, really really nice. The weather in California is amazing, by the way, compared to the kind of weather in Australia. Anyway, I was struck by how diverse the people were there. Some people attend the midwifery and dream analysis talks the previous night. Some people don't. They just want to come to this garden party to talk to Pierre. Someone who himself has mastered the Logos and systematized the understanding of the Pathologos, rediscovered the Pathologos, and just so much work. Helped us stop the Nazis. Has written other dialogues as well that are really amazing. Has a whole section on analogy in one of his dialogues. I think we'll get into that book soon. Anyway, so here's the guy and all these weirdos, all different sorts of weirdos, all different levels of understanding, all different levels of development, and they're all super eager to talk. Everyone wants to voice their opinion or ask a question. I thought, this is going to be a chaotic mess. I've been in conversations before with lots of people. Normally, everyone just wants to hear their own voice, or everyone wants to have a say, and it becomes a shouting match. And then it gets into politics or pathologos, things that people are attached to, and then they're not actually open to anything more, and they just close down. And it was amazing to see how he facilitated those kinds of conversations in a way where whatever he said, everyone at whatever level of perception they're on was like, oh yes, they were saying, ooh. And he would say, what do you think? And he would ask the right person the right questions to keep the conversation rolling. And then he would say something else that would hit for everyone. Because of this principle of scope that Logos has. The self-Logos. It's a learning that we take with us because it has the scope. It reaches all the way to the phronesis, oneself. We know that because there is a Logos in the first hypotheses of Parmenides. When Socrates was 19, he met his philosophical teacher Parmenides, one of them. He also had another teacher who was a woman named Diotima. Very important for all you sexists out there. Or who think that philosophy is a man's game. Bollocks, it isn't. Socrates' teacher was a woman. But his first one was a man named Parmenides. And when he described the nature of the oneself, what we are looking for, well, he used all the Logos words to do so. But then he concludes by saying, by the way, there is no Logos of the oneself. Even though we just went, and we've done it on the channel, you can find the links on YouTube, link below. Even though it was a Logos. So that's the puzzle. That's one of the puzzles we get from the first hypothesis. Similar to the puzzle we have here. Because virtue has to be something we get to. We are in, we function through. And it ain't belief, it has to be something we know. But it's beyond the object of knowledge. So similar question, how do you understand the oneself through Logos that is beyond Logos? How do you know your excellence, your highest functioning, if it's beyond knowing? And that's the puzzle we're at, and that's a little personal example of this idea of scope through the self-Logos, and someone who is a master of the Logos using it, because here is the sentence we're on, which summarizes the puzzle, brings together all of those terms we explored last time: analogy, anagogic, hyparxis, scope, hierarchical arrangement of selfers. Giving us, where is our sentence that we're on? Here. Oh, daemonic people seeking to be the daemon, not the kaka daemon. Oh, and by the way, I was going to say, because we are I never like my lighting. I need to get some better lights or something. Because we're doing both, ideally, we want to tune into both the kaka daemon and the good daemon, the good daemon and the bad daemon, because we have both every day. The loudest one, the one that we we think is most real, we're most familiar with it, is the kaka daemon. That's the one that shoots us down, says we're not good enough, creates the self-sabotage, chains us to fate. But there is the voice of the daemon. And Socrates talked about this a lot in the Alcibiades and the Apology. Yeah, there's a voice that communicates to me what's most beneficial from self. So we want to be able to attune to both. Because the kaka daemon isn't true, but will give us clues about our puzzle, our false belief about our pathologos. It's not true, but it's clues that you can only unpack through metaphor and similes, or analogy. It's not real, it's an analogous expression of something. And the two kinds of analogies I mentioned, metaphor speaks to something representing something, like, I don't know, maybe you have a voice saying, oh, this is going to happen, or the objects or furniture in your fantasy or daydream has a metaphorical relationship through analogy. So you think of you dream about, or you're fantasizing about a T-Rex, it is a metaphor for, and that's what you're looking for. It'll have a meaning to you. Which is why books that do dream interpretation never work. And you go to a different website, you see another interpretation of the same dream. Well, who do you believe? None. It's not about belief. It's about understanding the language. What's the understanding of the language of mind and self? The dialectic and logos. So what? So the metaphor you have to fill in. So that's why we talk about in the midwife not giving the answers. So we talked about finding incomplete analogies or incomplete dialectics, and also asking questions like Socrates is doing, because we're drawing out the answers, the logos, from the person. The other kind of analogy is simile, which is state of mind. What's it like? What's it feel like? So that's how we unpack the clues from our kaka daemon until we've sufficiently got all the clues, solved the puzzle, and then it won't be there anymore, is the theory that you have to verify for yourself. And if you do, please come back on the Discord and let us know. Did the voice of your kaka daemon, the self-sabotaging, diminishing, intruding, distracting voice, did that go away? Or is it transformed? Is it still there, but you are no longer bound to it? Or what happened? And so recognizing that, while also recognizing or looking for or tuning into the more quiet voice of the daemon, good daemon. That which is assigned to you to help you in your development from fate to destiny, from the pathologos to the oneself, from your sickness and injustice and projecting your anger. Your anger is really about your origin scene and your pathologos, but projecting it on others and attacking them. From that to the more good heart, good mind, rational, empathetic, caring, or intelligible. That's the height of rationality, because it also is knowable, not just understandable. And providential, a kind of caring that goes all the way up. So we say people who are, and of course there are studies on this. There's a Instagram dude, I can't remember his name, but his thing is, I do the psychology of politics. And And he points to studies that point out, like people who are conservative or don't want to change their false beliefs from childhood are not just lacking in intelligence compared to progressive people or left-wing politically people, but they're also less empathetic. And there's a famous heat map. Should I bring it up? No, you can find it. There's all right, I'll bring it up. Why not? All right, here we are. So this heat map shows the difference between right-wingers or conservatives up here. Let's zoom in a little bit. Conservatives, they're let's read it. Heat map indicating highest moral allocation by ideology. The highest value on the heat map scale is 20 units for liberals and 12 units for conservatives. Moral rings from inner to outer are described as follows: your immediate family, your extended family, your closest friends, all of your friends, including distant ones, all of your acquaintances, all people you've ever met, all people in your country, all people in your continent, all people on all continents, all mammals, all amphibians, reptiles, mammals, fish and birds, all animals on Earth, including paramecia and amoeba, all animals in the universe, including alien life forms, all living things in the universe, including plants and trees, all natural things in the universe, including inert entities such as rocks, and 16, all things in existence. Look at what liberals or progressive or leftists, look at their heat map. It goes all the way out to the edge on this is the on the right side. So they care about everyone. Whereas conservatives, it's back in your family. So what? Well, we can thank the people who do that because it gives us the data, but we can only understand it within the model or framework of course, that's what a pathologos is. That's what conservative is. That's why people more addicted to their pathologos find religious figures like their parents and become religious. Find political figures and vote for Trump or Hitler or whatever. Whereas the people who are trying to, who have a good heart, also the people with a good mind who want to understand, also have a good and progress and develop. Progressives also have a more kind heart, as we saw by that heat map. They want to help people. Whereas fascists and right-wingers are quite happy with hurting people so long as they get to see it or enjoy it, or be the one hurting because they're playing the role of their parent in their pathologos. So what? So, the connection between intelligence and empathy. And that's where we are going. And the daemon, or the eudaimon, is the expression of one, the kakadaimon, the expression of the other. Blind loyalty and lack of empathy and a lack of intelligence because of the blind loyalty to your pathologos versus how much can you share in the logos, reason, which opens your heart as well. Because in playing this game, in doing the dialectic, especially when you're sharing it with others, you connect with a different side of humanity, or you open an aspect of your own humanness. Which is why we were challenged to function in that way, where we talk about what we're learning in midwifery. We were challenged to do that in the book. So, this is a sentence where we are in the text. O eudaimon, or daimonic one, which is not the conservatives, not Anytos or Meno, but you and me. How can you know? Remember, all education is remembering the object of knowledge. Anything about regurgitating opinions or blindly obeying beliefs is tyranny, fascism, or simply the playing out of the ignorance of one's pathologos. So we want knowledge. How do you know this reality that we're after, virtue, whether it has anything good self, the name that we give to that level that's beyond knowledge is the one self or the good self, and whether it's worthless if you have no experience. So how do we know something that can't be known because it's beyond experience? But it's the good self, and it's functioning as a daemon, which is our highest goal, purpose, destiny, or excellence in virtue of being a human being, which is the question on the table. The first question was Meno asked Socrates whether or not virtue can be taught. So we've gone a long way from there. We understand what teaching is and how it doesn't really apply here versus learning and remembering. We've seen how that only is able to happen because of the logos and analogy and hyparxis and anagogic and scope and the self-logos terms, and someone being around like Socrates who can use it and share it, which is what we're encouraged to do as well. Yeah, that's what we're after. But how do we get there? And have it and know it. If it's reality, if it's the good, if it's our self, the higher self. But it can't be known because it's not an experience. I hit all the wrong sound drops.
There's so many good clippable moments.
There's no like labels on my like little launchpad thing here for my sound drops. I just guess, and sometimes I miss. So that's where we are. So let's jump into the reading. Socrates, O daemon, how can you know about this reality, whether it has anything good self or whether it's worthless, if you have absolutely no experience? Easily, says Anytos, since I do indeed know who these people are, whether I have experience. So the idea is, to Anytos, he's saying, hey, how do you know about these teachers, sophists, if you had no experience with them? But to us, of course, because of scope, has a higher meaning. I know who these people are, whether I've had experience of them or not. Are you a seer, Anytos? How could you know about them? Since in what way? Perhaps you are a seer, O Anytos. Since what other way could you know about them? For from that which you yourself say about them, I am left to wonder. Oh, wonder. Calling back to one of the key moments in the text where he described aporia, or being stung. Wonder. However, let's not try to find out those are to whom Meno can go to become worthless. For on the one hand, let them be the sophists, if you wish. But. Actually, I think let me just fix something here. Right, so I'm just going to check something on my OBS real quick. Maybe duck this volume a little bit. I think I was a bit loud. Was I a bit loud? Oh no, I think I was alright. Was I peeking out? Was I peeking out? Oh, I'm peeking out there. Sorry about that. Alright, we're good. Right, okay. Fair enough. We're not interested in who's rubbish, so stop your complaining. We'll call them the sophists, the worthless ones that make people worthless. But then... Oh, spam. Please. Spam more. I need to get people to chat. If I get an average of 3 people on Twitch watching these live and commenting, then I can become an affiliate and get money from Twitch, which will allow me to do this more. So please, spammer, advertising, whatever. Keep coming back. Hang out here. Bring your friends. So who can we send Meno to in order that he become worthy of the logos of virtue, which I now explained? Notice, the logos of virtue. So we can add to our working dialectic or understanding or definition of what virtue is all of the terms we talked about before, daemon, phronesis. Add logos in there. Would it be the best we can be if we weren't able to understand it? Would we be the best we could be if we weren't able to understand and communicate it? Would we be the best we could be if we weren't able to understand, communicate it to benefit the soul of others? Take any of those out, then you can say, well, I can do better. Therefore, it's not the best. It's not excellence. Anytos says, hey, why don't you tell him yourself? Socrates. I did say who I thought the teachers of these were, but as you say, I happen to be speaking nonsense. Perhaps what you say is right, Anytos. So then, do you share and tell himself, to address himself, to which Athenians he must go. Tell him any name you wish. Anytos. Why should I be confined to one particular name? For any of the noble and good citizens of Athens he may encounter, without exception, will make him better than those goddamn sophists. Thinking people. It's kind of common sense guy, right? Don't go to school. They just wreck you. Homeschool. So anyone in Athens, any of the good and noble citizens of Athens will make him, without exception, anyone, the most ignorant Athenian, that's his view of these teachers, will make him better than the sophists, if indeed he is willing to be persuaded. Different from understanding, right? Different from logos, right? Oh, I don't know, maybe. Are we persuaded by the logos? I suppose you could say that. This is a question. Are we persuaded? Do we change our minds when going through the dialectic? Socrates, but did these noble and good people come to this way spontaneously, by having learned from no one, but are nevertheless able to teach others that which they themselves did not learn? Anytos. I do indeed suspect that these people learn from the previous generation. Learning anyway. By also being noble and good. Or does it not appear to you that there have been many good people in the city? Socrates. It does indeed also appear to me, Anytos, that there are good statesmen here. Interesting. Qualifiers. Statesman. Different from daemon, right? And there are even no less than those. Why is my lighting so bad? We'll do this. I'll stick with this one. But there have also been good teachers. There are good statesmen here, and there are even no less than came before. But have they also been good teachers of the virtue of selves? For this is that which the Logos happens to be about. Not if there are good people here or not, nor if there have been in the past. But we have been considering all along whether excellence is teachable.
Where's the joy? Where's the
engage in this
childlike wonder?
flippable moment.
Hit all of the buttons. Thus, so we have been considering all along whether excellence is teachable, reminding us of the question, as he reminded us where we're at the beginning. Thus, by considering this issue, we are considering whether good people, both those now and before, also knew how to transmit to another this excellence which the good selves were. Again, he's always elevating it or speaking from a kind of logos that has scope. For Anytos, good selves mean good people. Selves mean physical. Not the selves of the selfers and being, not the selves of the one self or the good self of Phronesis and the functioning of the state of being of the good daemon. That's the scope. It goes all the way down. But for us, we're going all the way to the top. Were they able to transmit to another this excellence which the good selves were? Or is this untransmittable nor receivable from one human to another? This is the question which Meno and I have been searching after. Therefore consider it in this way, from the logos of thyself. Now, the word thyself points to the highest version or the anagogic version of that word self. The highest that you're at. Now, it's going to be different for different people who are at different levels of development, but that's why Parmenides says in the first hypothesis, he's giving his logos of himself, thyself. Thyself also is the maxim that their community lived by. Know thyself. Which is what we're after, right? Excellence. To know the self, the highest self, the good self or the one self. But how can you know that if it's beyond knowledge and experience? That's the issue. How do you know yourself if it's beyond knowing? So, thyself. So use the highest, or what you think your highest self is. Use the logos of that. Please, would you not say that Themistocles was a good man? Anytos. I would indeed. Most exceptional of all indeed. Soc. Is it not so then that he would also be a good teacher, seeing that if anyone was a teacher, the excellence of the self, then that man would be one. If anyone could teach the excellence of self, now he's really refined it. Excellence of self, that's what we're after. Then that man would be one. Themistocles. Anytos. I do indeed think so, if indeed he really wanted to be one. Soc. But do you think that he would not have wanted for other people to become noble and good? Or is he a capitalist or somebody motivated by the physical world of desires and honor or fame? They want to hoard and they don't want other people to be rich. That's the problem with capitalism. You can't all be billionaires. You have to make sure people don't have a noble and good life by genociding people, by enslaving people, by creating wealth inequality, by creating this extreme corrupt system of capitalism, fascism that we are living through, which is nothing other than the playing out of the absurdity of our pathologos. So, those, of course, let them be the sophists. Let's not talk anymore about what people are currently like. Let's go back to our question. Wouldn't he want other people to become? Or would he be the sort of jerk that wants to harm other people because he thinks it's a zero-sum game, because he has not thought about anything other than his physical senses and his physical desires? Especially his son. Hey, even those jerks sometimes care about their children. Or do you, not always of course, or do you think that he bore ill will towards self and deliberately did not transmit the excellence of self, of which self was good? So he bore ill will towards either himself or his son, depending on how you're reading that word self. Goes both ways. Do you have, or have you not heard that Themistocles has his son Cleophantos taught to be a good horseman? Then indeed he used to stand upright upon a pair of horses and hurl javelins while standing upright on the horses, and he accomplished many other amazing feats as well. in which that man had self-educated, and which he was made wise. All of which, not self-educated, he had his son educated. He had him educated to be a good horseman and throwing javelins on a horse. Amazing feats in that which he had self-educated and which he was made wise. All of which require good teachers. Or have you not heard these things from your elders? So there's a question. What is wisdom? Full stop. Also, it seems to be one of those terms that has a scope. You can have, I guess, wisdom of phronesis maybe, but you can also have a kind of wisdom of how to stand on a horse and throw javelins. Have you heard about these from your elders? Anytos, I have heard. Thus, no one could lay blame by saying there was any defect in the natural ability of his son. No. What follows then? Did you ever hear, either from the young or the elders, that Cleophantos, son of Themistocles, had become good and wise, a good and wise man, just as his father? Not at all. Oh dear. Take notice then. Are we to believe that he wished to educate his son in these matters, but when it came to the wisdom in which he was wise, he made no better than his neighbors? His son was made no better than his neighbors. If, indeed, of course, if. So he's showing us how do you use hypotheses. Hypotheses and the dialectic. So Socrates is engaged in a dialectic here. It's your job to pull out the pieces and the parts. So, if it was teachable, what about this? By Zeus, that's not likely. Surely then, of the previous generations, this very man was among those who were the best teachers of virtue, as you yourself agrees. But we must consider another one. Aristides, the son of Lysimachus. Or do you not agree that Aristides was good? And Anytos said, well, he had a good name. No, he said, I do indeed, in every way, without a doubt, agree that Aristides, son of Lysimachus, was good. Soc, is it not so then, that he also provided his son, Lysimachus, with an education by the very best Athenian teachers in those subjects that they maintain? Whereas on the other hand, does he appear to you? Where's my stuffy? Does he appear to you to have been made a better man? Than anyone? For surely you have also been in the company of this man, and see what kind of man he is. Then if you wish, consider Pericles, such a magnificently wise man. Oh my goodness. Where are the books that Pericles wrote? You know he raised two sons, Paralos and Xanthippos. These names. I do indeed. Then on the one hand, I'm going to stick with this light. Then you also know that these two were taught to be inferior to no Athenian in horsemanship. Thumbs up. Hey, greetings TV. Welcome. And they were also educated, who? The two sons, Pericles and Xanthippos, were the sons of Pericles, who was magnificently wise. They were taught in horsemanship, and they were also educated in music and wrestling. Wrestling. No. Not wrestling from you. I have a Tyrannosaurus stuffy. He gets rambunctious and tries to attack me. Sometimes. So, wrestling. Hey, when the Greeks wrestled, they were naked. So, do you want me to get naked and wrestle you, T-Rex? Is that what you want? No, I didn't think so. No one wants to see that. On Twitch because of the terms of service. So, they were also educated in music and wrestling and other subjects that are kept by art. The word art. To be inferior to none. So what's significant about an art? It must have a knowledge, it must have an excellence, it must have a logos or understanding, and you should be able to use it to benefit the subject. In this instance, raising and training a horse. Thus, and of course, today we were talking about how you can go from horsemanship to not just someone who cares for horses, but people, doctors and personal trainers. And then you can say, well, what's the next step? That's the hyparxis that can create an analogy that can move upward, which is the word anagogic, to understanding the significance of midwifery and philosophy.
It's a win-win.
But in order that you do not think that this just happens to a few of the most lowly born Athenians who are unable to... Wait, I've gone too far. So, they were educated in music and wrestling and horsemanship, which are things kept by an art. Thus, and they were inferior, and they were better than everyone. Thus, on the one hand, he did not wish to make them good men. Did he not wish to make them good men in this way? It appears to me, on the one hand, that he did wish so. Whereas, on the other hand, virtue is not teachable. But in order that you do not think this just happens to a few of the most lowly born Athenians who are unable to accomplish this business, take this to heart. That Thucydides, I went to school with the Thucydides, also raised two sons, I'm joking, Melisius and Stephanos. Sounds like girls' names, but okay. They were well educated in other ways, and were the best wrestlers of the Athenians. Ooh. For one of them was taught by Xanthias. Okay. Are you keeping track of all these people? I guess not. It's not meaningful. I don't know. Maybe. Actually, now that I think about it, if I were a betting man, I would bet that each of these names used has a root or a special meaning in Greek. In the same way, I think yesterday, me and TV were talking about, I think it was TV, maybe it was another chatter, talking about how in the Republic, Socrates talks to many different sorts of people. And they have different states of mind and functioning. Again, levels of development. But their names reflect their demeanor. So Polemarchus is named after a pole arm, like a war weapon, and he was a very warlike person, very angry, wants to fight Socrates a lot. So if you are someone who likes getting into the etymology of things, or you like Greek names, this could be a puzzle for you. What's the significance of all these crazy names? Let's keep reading. Melis and Stephanos were well educated. By the way, you wouldn't want to tell these two dudes that they have girls' names if they're the best wrestlers, because they'll kick your ass. They're the best wrestlers of the Athenians. For one of them was taught by Xanthias, and the other by Eudorus. My dad's name. Just kidding. They were well reputed to be the best wrestlers of that time. Okay, so these two were the best wrestlers. Do you not remember? Anytos. I have indeed heard of them. Is it not clear, says Soc, that Thucydides would not ever have felt the need to teach his boys those subjects which cost money to teach, like wrestling? Thumbs up for wrestling, for some reason. While on the other hand, he would not have then felt the need to teach them those subjects which cost nothing. What?
What?
To teach. Sorry. Teach the subjects which cost nothing to make them good men. That's important. If it was indeed, because we're after, how do we be our best? How do we be good? Good men. If it was indeed teachable. Yeah, so here's a dude who found the best teachers of wrestling, but it costs money. But if he's got virtue and it can be taught, then he wouldn't even have to pay money. For perhaps then, Thucydides was of lowly descent, and self did not have many friends among the Athenians and among her allies. And yet, he was descended from a great family and had great influence in the city and among the other Hellenes, so that if indeed excellence were teachable, and if self did not have any leisure time because of his attentive care of the city, then he would surely have found someone else to make his sons good. Found someone else who would be able to make his sons good, whether they were some native or foreigner. But I'm afraid, O companion Anytos. Notice, this is a way of being Socrates is demonstrating where it's not debate, it's not adversarial, it's not my team versus your team, it's not Jews versus Palestinians, or Catholics versus Protestants, or left versus right. We are friends. Even though Anytos is right down the bottom, Socrates is right up the top. It's a way of relating to human beings. Socrates keeps calling him friend, companion. Would that be a part of virtue? Is a daemon helping you or hurting you, the real daemon? Always wants to help. Never gives up, never gets tired. The daemon. Your dream master. That which creates every moment of reality. That gives us the illusion of movement because every scene is different, like a movie theater. Something's doing all that tirelessly, powerfully. So that's an important thing. Because our whole society is built upon the pathologos way of treating people, oppression, harming people. The billionaires exploit the workers, that kind of thing. You go into work, your boss gets to do whatever, you get to do what you're told. The Jews get to live in Gaza, the Palestinians get their children's heads blown off and get to watch their parents die in fires because they go to help other people who've been hit by a bomb. And the Israelis and Americans do double tapping. They bomb some people, and then they set off another bomb for those good people trying to help. So that's one way of relating to people, characterized by the pathologos, we would say. Whereas Socrates is talking to people as friends. And thumbs up. And he did cover this right at the beginning. Because Meno challenged him. He said, well, hang on a second. I asked you to give a dialectic on color and shape or something. And but what if I pretended that I didn't know one of these terms? I played dumb to win the argument. Like a debate bro. Or a Fox News reporter who's not actually reporting, is just trying to use words deviously to harm people and make the truth, lie. he said this to him, and he says, another one, advise your guest friend here, Anytos, earlier. Here, right at the beginning, page 8. Because shape, here's Meno. So this is right after Socrates has demonstrated what we're here to learn as human beings in this channel, the dialectic, to define shape. What is shape? Meno responds, because shape is in some way, according to your logos, that which always follows color has to have a shape. But then if someone were to say that they did not know what color is, but were in the same difficulty about shape, what do you think you would have answered, Socrates? Trying to pick holes in the dialectic. Socrates said, the truth. What would Socrates have answered with? The truth. Is that part of virtue? You always answer with the truth. You answer according to the truth. The truth, as far as I'm concerned. If the questioner were indeed one of the wise ones, sarcastic, they're heuristic and antagonistic, debate bros, fighting, the sort of bullshit talking heads on the propaganda news networks that are just trying to fight and yell at each other. Antagonistic, trying to bait. Do you condemn Hamas? That's a bait question. Because blame game is fucking stupid for babies. We're trying to understand and solve problems. Because blame game is stupid, irrational. It implies, number one, there's one cause and it's that person, which is stupid and wrong. Not true. Many, many causes to the situation in the Middle East where there's a genocide happening at the time of recording. Number two, the reason why condoning all the blame game is stupid and you have to get rid of it to begin to become mature and rational. It implies that one cause, that person, made that bad thing because they are innately bad. They are heathen or evil or goyim or vermin or monkeys or animals. Sand N-words. Every time there is an invasion of another group of people, the first thing they do is come up with a word that implies this. They are the cause of bad things, and the cause is they are innately bad. Not a false belief, which is true, and everyone has, the pathologos. No. You're just evil because you're a woman or because you're a brown. Terrible, terrible stuff. But it's the zeitgeist at the moment, which is important for us to acknowledge because we need to know where we are so we can take the next step into the logos of understanding. Oh, and the third thing is, and therefore you're the one cause. It's because the cause is not because of a lack of understanding or a pathologos. It's because you're innately bad, and therefore you deserve punishment. And by the way, I get to pick the punishment, and it's my pathologos. Oh, I get to play daddy's role and crush you the way I was crushed, and steal all your resources and flatten your houses in the meantime too. Because, as Socrates pointed out, all war is motivated by philosomatos, love of the body, love of wealth, love of fame. This is all physical stuff, belief stuff, hoarding stuff. Whereas a good person would not hoard that which is eternal and for everyone. Virtue, truth, knowledge, wisdom, logos, all of the self for terms, beauty itself, justice itself. It's for everyone. Okay? So, we call them debate bros or fascists or liars or propagandists today. In their time, they called them antagonistic and heuristic. Antagonistic means they like to fight and bait people, like the question, who do you condemn Hamas, when the good people are trying to understand the causes of the genocide so we can stop the genocide and never have to do it again. Or, as we read in the Philosophical Midwifery book, we finally put an end to Nazism. Because just as Pierre was fighting the Nazis in World War II, realized we're just doing the same thing we've done for 1,000 years, and
no one seems to be learning or growing or addressing actual problems.
And what do you know, the Nazis are back? Because we haven't employed what he discovered to answer that question. Why are we still fighting Nazis as we did in the Roman times? Still fighting the barbarians of ignorance? And then he answered it and gave it to us. Which is interesting, because one of the things Pierre also mentioned is each generation is defined by the ideas of the previous one. So Pierre grew up in a world without internet, but also without philosophical midwifery. He had to rediscover it. And fortunately had some good friends who went to the effort to get a doctorate in clinical psychology so they could do like 10 years getting that doctorate just so they could show that, hey, this thing, that's true. Here is the scientific empirical studies to prove it, making it the only form of psychotherapy that's been empirically verified and validated. But of course it is. No shit. But that's important if you're new to it. Like that was something that I have to remind myself whenever I had doubt. Like, is this really legitimate? How come they're not teaching this at university? How come every psychologist isn't doing this? How come every psychotherapist isn't doing this? I must be wrong. No, it's in there. It's the only form of verified. Oh, and by the way, the people that you do learn about, if you study psychology at college, like Albert Ellis, cognitive behavioral therapy, he met Pierre, and they met in, I think it was Greenwich Village in New York, and had coffee and talked about this stuff. Pierre gave him the challenge he gives everyone. Alan Watts, I can't remember the other people he met. He's the Luffy or the Forrest Gump of philosophy. He met all these big names that are famous today and asked and said the same thing. Hey, you're doing all right, but you're going to get into Socrates? You're going to get into the Logos? And what did they all do? They all ran away.
There's so many good clippable moments.
And that was the wrong button. They all ran away from that challenge. But kept their money, wealth, and fame, many of them.
We're going to engage in dishonesty?
Oh, yes, Oracle, but we won't say that aloud because it might hurt people's feelings. Yeah, so an important fact, and you can buy the book. Looks like this. Verification studies. If you're into that sort of stuff. Analysis of the Gestalt-Gleiser Content Analysis Effect Scale scores for the philosophical midwifery sessions. Lots of big words and some graphs. So what? Well, Socrates is saying, hey, look, if you want to be one of these dicks on Fox or on the Daily Wire or on any of those right-wing propaganda networks who are not interested in truth, they are instead...
We're going to engage in dishonesty?
Engaging in dishonesty. They are the antagonistic kind, and heuristic means using words for that. Misusing words. So here is Meno saying, hey, if I was to be one of these debate bros, and I said, your dialectic on shape is dumb and wrong because I don't know what color is, I would say to him, my answer has been stated, but if I did not state it correctly, it's your work to take up the Logos and refute me. I've answered. I was right. Don't make up bullshit. Use the Logos to refute my position. But if we were friends, notice, philoi, the same root of philosophy, and also love. If we were friends, we would choose to be discoursing with each other as you and I are now doing. I would reply, I must reply. He must do it. It's interesting. Because we were also wondering yesterday about why did Parmenides give that whole logos of the first hypothesis to demonstrate the dialectic to Socrates in the Parmenides? Because he doesn't talk about it much. He says it's like a racehorse going back to a champion racehorse who's retired. I don't want to go back to that crap. Do you know how difficult it is to swim through that sea of logos to give a dialectical definition of the true nature of the self, which is what we're after here? Not knowledge, but that which is beyond knowledge, the one self. But he did it. There was something compelling him. Equally so, there's something compelling Socrates, and I would suggest perhaps if we reach this level of virtue, of selfness, of phronesis, we might find ourselves compelled to do this. Do what? To reply in a more gentle way. Again, firm with the jerks who are not talking in good faith.
We're going to engage in dishonesty?
But to people who are friends, the gentle way, and more in the way of the dialectician. Thus, the dialectical way is not only to answer the truth, but equally to... So the truth is, if you want to find the truth, you are following the dialectical way. But equally to also proceed by means of the premises which the one who is questioning acknowledges they know. So we build the premises together. And the person doing the question has to be the one saying it. Like if you're lying, I don't know what color, I've never seen color before in my life. No, you're not leading the conversation, pal. No, okay. You wouldn't say that to your friend. This is the friend version. Oh, actually, I'm leading the conversation. That's why it's the dialectic. I ask a question, you give an answer. I have to judge whether or not it's appropriate to the question, whether it's true, whether you're lying. Then surely this is the way that I will endeavor to converse with you. So, right at the beginning, pointing out this dialectic that we're learning, but also it's a way of relating to people through friendship. Now imagine if we related to our co-workers through friendship. Imagine if our politicians, imagine if at work wasn't, oh, let's fear the boss or let's do what we're told, but friendship. Why does it have to be domination and tyranny in the workplace, in politics? It doesn't. We just have to recognize that way of being as what it is, which is what? The heuristic antagonistic kind of being, or what we would call ignorance, often pathologos-based ignorance, and oppression and tyranny. Whereas we need to recognize that, well, which is why we read the midwifery book, but also the way of being a friend, which is the dialectical way of being. Right at the start, and now at the end where we are, towards the end. Companion. He keeps repeating, remember we're friends, remember we're friends, remember we're companions. Remember you're trying to be a daemon. Remember you're trying to find yourself. Remember we're speaking to thyself. We're speaking from thyself. Remember, remember, remember. So this guy also has connections everywhere. So if he was too busy and had no leisure time to teach his sons, not just wrestling, but how to be a good man, he would surely have found someone else to make his sons good, whether they were a native or a foreigner. But I'm afraid, O friend, companion Anytos, that excellence is not teachable. Is the conclusion from that line of reasoning. What's this whole premise? This whole idea is based on the premise. Let's have a look. Forgot for a second. Meno, Anytos. Anytos arrives here. All right. If it was something teachable, we would find teachers of it. Remember, he's already concluded, if it were knowledge, if our excellence is knowledge, it would indeed be teachable. Because that's what we're doing here. We're learning the dialectic, not real teaching, it's remembering through learning, through the dialectic, through reading what we're already interested in anyway, this. But it's not knowledge, it's beyond knowledge. So, with Anytos, which is interesting, I talked about how at those Saturday morning brunches, Pierre was able to manage the conversation in a way that blew my mind. I've never seen it done before. But another thing he would do is he'd ask the different people different questions. So as the logos or the conversation of the morning was progressing, he would get to points where he'd ask questions, but he would pick the people most appropriate to ask, to include them, but the right people. It was fascinating. So here's Socrates discussing an idea to find out whether virtue is teachable, talking to Anytos, who is very low down in the physical world, doesn't even trust regular teachers. He's more of a common sense kind of a bloke. And so he's asking him, all right, so you're more about gossip and people and like fame and like celebrity and stuff like that. So you know all the big hitters in town. You're into that kind of drama. So I'll ask you this question. Hey, are there any good people around? Okay, not the sophists. Okay, we've already got rid of those. But are they? This guy, you know him? This guy, you know him? Oh yeah, top bloke. Yep. Awesome dude. Look at how they've taught their sons. So we've really narrowed it. If they care about anyone, it'd be their sons. And if we can see that they care about their sons, we can look at those people. And if we see that they've already taught them other things, like horsemanship, wrestling, even spent money on those things, why didn't they teach virtue? Especially if these people were virtuous themselves, were good people themselves. Wouldn't have cost them any money. They're too busy, they've got connections. Therefore, if excellence was teachable, we'd find teachers. We'd look to the people who had virtue, who were good men, and see if they were able to teach their sons. No one has been able to. Look at how dopey their kids are. Therefore, and not because they have a lack of ability, they were able to be the best wrestlers and the best javelin throwing horse riders while standing. Therefore, O companion, Anytos, virtue or excellence is not teachable. Ooh, what a conclusion. Anytos. Oh, Socrates, you appear to me to easily speak badly. There's our caca again. For bad. Familiar? He's judging speech. And the L-E-G-E. So that even speech has a root from logos. He's not a master of the logos in speech, but he gets to decide. The Dunning-Kruger effect, right? The more ignorant people are, especially if it's due to their pathologos image of certainty, image of what it means to be wise, well, the more wrong they're going to be, but the more confident about that, to the point where this guy knows very little, is judging Socrates. Crazy. But normal for humans. We're learning about we find ourselves here. We begin not remembering where we came from, not remembering where we're going, and not remembering what we're supposed to be doing while we're here, but we got to work it out. And and so we got to tell the truth, as Socrates says. If we were friends, we'd tell the truth. Always. And one of the things that is true about humanity is this. People like Anytos, the worst, feel they can judge the best, and they judge wrong. Their judgment isn't based on the logos of the conversation or reason and evidence and friendly dialectic, but his conclusion is different from the conclusion he's already attached to and addicted to from childhood.
The problem is that you can't reason someone out of a position that they didn't reason themselves into.
Oh, Socrates, says Anytos, you appear to me to easily speak badly about human beings. Therefore, I will give you some advice. Now, again, instantly, red flags, run. Advice means what? Dialectic, understanding, belief. Believe me. Let me give you some advice. Fuck off. No way. I don't want advice. I want understanding. I'm not going to be your slave. Advice never works anyway. You either already believe it, and so you are not benefited, or you disagree for your reasons, and they haven't provided any reason, just given advice, and then you'll just say that's stupid and wrong, and you'll ignore it. Advice is just an ego game. I'll give you some advice, Socrates, if you will be persuaded by me. Be careful. That's his advice. Notice, these sorts of terrible people, the worst kinds of people, and again, we have a dialectic of what makes people the worst and the wisest. That's usually their response to reason and conclusions. We came to a conclusion. One of the blocks caused by many things, including the pathologos, is an inability to conclude. If you conclude, you have to change and grow and learn and be different. That's what the pathologos that keeps us sleepwalking zombies wants to stop. So their advice is usually, I'm going to kick your ass. I'm going to genocide your children. I'm going to invade your country. I'm going to send you to detention. I'm going to give you a bad grade. I'm going to fire you. I'm going to make you starve. It's always the worst expression of human functioning because it's the distorted, it's the opposite. It's the reflection or the inversion of the best kind of human functioning. Notice, certainty, whereas wonder, aporia, stung. Advice, whether compared to dialogue, dialectic. Threats of violence, as opposed to invitations to be a friend. This is our condition. This is where we woke up when we were born. Whether you like it or not, you're here. It's time to figure out what we're here to do. And this is it. Or these are fundamental principles and dynamics within our human experience that we have to be honest about. We have to talk about as friends. We have to acknowledge and work with to reach the truth.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win. So, here's my advice, Socrates. Oh, you be careful. Since perhaps it may be easy to do harm and benefit to people in other cities, in this city, it's very easy. It's very easy to do what? To do harm to people. But I think that even yourself know this. Anytos exits. That conclusion that we made together, I don't like it. And here's a bit of advice. You watch your back. It may be easy to do harm or benefit in other cities, but I can tell you one thing. In this city, it's very easy to do harm or benefit. Meaning he's threatening harm. I think actually Anytos might have been one of the people who charged Socrates in the trial that he was eventually murdered for by the state. 2 charges, making the wrong argument seem like the right one. Again, it is the right one. Anytos is just ignorant and doesn't want to listen. So that's that charge. And Socrates says that first charge is stupid and bullshit and just based on prejudice and ignorance, and he deals with it. The second charge is that he has a daemon. Anytos, who Socrates tried to invite him into this task, Socrates tried to invite Anytos into this task to be a daemon. Hey, oh daemon one. This was the charge that he was murdered for. Telling the truth about we all having daemons that can communicate to us both our problems in the daemon, the pathologos, but also can guide us towards our purpose and destiny and phronesis and virtue, which seems to be a kind of functioning as well that makes us daemon-like. So here is angry Anytos. I say angry Anytos because Socrates says, it appears to me that Anytos is angry. But it does not surprise me at all. For first of all, he thinks I'm accusing these men. And secondly, he himself believes that self is one of these. So Socrates realizes or sees or understands, I don't know how, that Anytos considers him one of the wise people of Athens, one of the good wise men, the virtuous men. And here is Socrates saying, well, you can't teach it. Thus, if he ever recognizes that which speaking badly is, he will stop being angry. If he really knows what it means to speak bad. We've hit the big ones: heuristic, antagonistic, non-friendly, non-daemon-like, daemon-like. Not phronesis, but the pathologos or the aphronesis, anti-phronesis. Shutting down arguments, threatening, giving advice, instead of reasoned understanding so people can understand and see for themselves. If he ever recognizes that, he will stop being angry. Whereas now he does not recognize this. How would you recognize this? You need 2 things. You need this, the logos, and you need philosophical midwifery. Because philosophical midwifery blocks us from, our pathologos blocks us from reason and understanding, blocks us from conclusions, blocks us from excellence and virtue, and blocks us from functioning, from speaking well. So makes us speak badly like he is, but also there's anger. The anger that we project irrationally is a redirection or projection of the anger our soul feels from the injustice we suffered when we picked up our pathologos. He's angry at his dad for crushing him. But now he's addicted to his dad's way of being, and he'll attack anyone who threatens the thing that's crushing him still to this day. So the big question we have, how come there are so many bootlickers to the billionaires? How come people voted in Trump, who is notoriously criminal and corrupt and unempathetic and pathologos-ridden and racist? Why do people attack those that try and introduce reason and understanding? The very people that help them? Why do people act against their own interests and attack people who can help them? This is Anytos. Attacking Socrates, someone who can help him overcome the injustice he suffered, which is at the root of his false idea of virtue, and is making him angry. But instead of addressing the real cause of his anger, the insult to himself when he was young by his parents, the pathologos, Instead, he's angry at Socrates, who has done nothing but help him think and reason and be kind and friendly and encouraging and supportive. Socrates has been nothing but virtuous, and here he is threatening to murder him, and he eventually does. This is our condition as human beings. We have Socrates, we have Anytos. That's the game.
You're a wizard, Harry.
And fortunately, if we're honest and friendly with ourselves, we can understand this, see it, test it in our experience, and free ourselves from our problems to move from the pathologos to the logos, or reach our virtue or excellence of humanity and function as a eudaimon through the gentle, friendly way of the dialectic.
A win-win-win-win-win.
Oh, Meno, it seems that Anytos is angry, but that doesn't surprise me. For first of all, he thinks I'm accusing these men. But secondly, he believes he's one of them. Thus, if he ever recognizes that which speaking badly really is, he'll stop being angry. Whereas now, he does not recognize this. So you tell me, Meno, are there not noble and good people among our citizens? Excuse me. So, exit Anytos, stage left. Anytos is in, Anytos is out. Yes, he's very angry. T-Rex recognizes the anger. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 pages left of the conversation between Meno and Socrates. So our questions from last time coming into this is, let's go through again the conversation with Anytos, because earlier in the text, Meno was resistant to being empty, curious, stung, aporia, wondering. He thinks it's good and virtuous to pretend to be certain at all times, even when he's proven wrong time and time again. But when Socrates turned away from him and says, hey, watch this, and he engaged in a conversation with someone else in front of him, the slave boy was more open to being wrong about the math equation and changed his mind. He's different. That's why we don't say, I am a this, I am a that, I am a Marxist, I am a Christian. No. These are thoughts, not you. If you identify with them, you can't change them, because killing a belief is killing you. That's what we saw in midwifery. The problem behind our loyalty to the harmful beliefs that prevent us from our development is because we have identified self with them. So never say, I am a Marxist or I am a Christian. Say, oh, these are the thoughts or beliefs that I think more accurately explain what I'm learning about currently, but I could change my mind tomorrow. I could change my mind the very next moment. It's not me. It's not my identity. I'm not a Jew. I'm not a Zionist. These are just thoughts and beliefs that I think most accurately explain reality and how we can move from pathologos to our daimonic, eudaimon, phronesis, good, virtuous, authentic self. It's not a clan identity or team. It's just a goddamn belief. And belief isn't even a good kind of thing to be relating to. We want understanding and nous and phronesis, of course, and wisdom, and all the other things we've been talking about today. Right, and the conclusion that they came to together, Anytos saw as a threat to his false beliefs that he is loyal to and identified with. Oh, he believes he's one of these. He's identified with this image and belief. And of course, anger. We talked about anger in midwifery as well. A redirection of the anger that is being kept alive in our soul because our daemon and the self does not want us to be content with a false idea of ourselves. If we're here to move from pathologos, which our soul had before we were incarnated, which is forced us to miss an opportunity spiritually, so we have to come here to learn about how to think, but also how to remove what's false, so we can take our spiritual opportunities and continue our spiritual journey. If that's what we're here for, then we're here to move from pathologos to logos. Any belief you may have isn't you, but is a hypothesis. If you're getting it from advice or other people, stop that. That's stupid, because you have to make your own hypotheses, because if you're making them, they can change. If it's a belief, they can't change, because it's not yours. You're believing the guy in the funny hat, or mum and dad, or teacher, or preacher, or imam, or rabbi, or pastor, or bishop. It's not you. You can't change. And so you'll be like Anytos, who will harm himself and harm the people who can help him. Socrates. So, never pursue belief. There are some circumstances where you, for a short amount of time at the beginning, like courage, when you begin this process, you have to trust or believe trust the logos. It's different from belief. That maybe we are able to develop. Maybe there is reason and intelligibility in reality. Maybe there is a providence being extended to us. You don't know yet because you're just starting. That's something Socrates introduces in the Republic. The one belief that you have to hold on to with the virtue of courage until you read some, do some midwifery and realize, it's not a belief. I understand why it's necessary. So, it's not you, and get rid of belief. Understanding is you developing your hypotheses through the structure of the dialectic that explain things. So when you say, I'm a Christian, no. Christianity, this certain belief that is held by Christians seems to be the hypothesis that best explains, but I'm carrying 8 other ones, and as I learn, some will not explain it as well and will drop away. The best will rise to the surface as the hyparxis, which will allow them to be verified in direct experience, because they will also facilitate that hyparxis, anagogic, analogical movement to the next level, where you will perceive beauty and justice, the things you've been developing a hypothesis about, directly, immediately, as the pure nature of yourself, your mind. So get rid of belief as soon as you can. Do hypothesis and understanding so it can do that movement. And then you keep it going. You want to understand that experience and ask the questions that we are asking here. If the aspects of virtue are included in this confirming pure being, how do you have all of them? What has a scope over all of them? Or what caused all of them? Or what is experiencing them? That's the movement from, through, again, understanding and questions and hypothesis, the gentle, friendly way of the daemon, of the good self. Asking questions about that, even that experience, to move to the good self. Which, according to what we have seen for ourselves, must be what virtue is. Now, phronesis can be more to virtue, but virtue itself has to at least be a part of it. It's either wholly or a part phronesis. Right. So these two characters, Socrates and Anytos, really personify and the way that they relate to each other and others, really mythologize or personify in drama the human quest. It's our quest. We're on it. Good for us. Thank you so much for joining me. For whatever level you're following along or you're enjoying these podcasts, congratulations and thank you. And yeah, we are intelligible. We can move from Anytos to Socrates. We can solve the puzzle. We can find that hyparxis, and we can evolve individually, most importantly, and collectively, if you go out and you share this with enough people, like Socrates is, make enough friends, make enough philos to relate to in the gentle way of the dialectic. Keep it up. You're doing great. Thank you for joining me today. And so now next time we're going to look and see, just as Meno wasn't able to be wrong because he identified with his beliefs, and so he couldn't change his mind. He was stuck. But when Socrates talked to the slave boy in front of Meno, the slave boy was able to change his mind. He was able to reason that he got the equation wrong, and if he didn't change his mind, he'd be making a fool of himself and hurting other people if he was ever in a position of power over them as a math teacher. Equally so, teachers of virtue, or parents, or politicians, or whatever, if they're not able to change their mind, they will be hurting the people that they are supposed to be benefiting through their art. Again, the inverse of art. Are the politicians helping anyone? No. Are they enriching themselves? Yes. Is that what a doctor does? Never. Is that the opposite of art? Yes. We are in a topsy-turvy world simply because the pathologos is an inversion of truth, allowing us to help to understand both, but really, really showing us the stakes, the importance, the need to learn this art that we're here for, to address that false belief that we are here for, that puzzle our soul is here for. Master it as a way of being and keep going until you go all the way to fully knowing thyself. Know thyself, that's the maxim, which is a puzzle because it's beyond the object of knowledge. So how can you know thyself? But it's possible. And sharing this art and way of being with others to create a new way of being that even the people who are lower down, like Anytos and Meno, and are interested in community and group solidarity and all that sort of stuff, my team versus your team, here is a team. It's Team Logos. That's the team. If you want a group, that's a group. If you like hierarchies of dominance, that's the hierarchy. It's not dominance, but there's a hierarchy. You can improve and get better. You like ranks, you can upgrade your rank as you develop. You want to be in charge? You have to earn it. Master that dialectic. All of the things that keep people attached to the structures and the group dynamics that cause harm in the world is nothing other than a usurping or a misuse of what's in our soul to reach this. It's not a hierarchy of lobsters that justify Christian white men oppressing and killing everyone else, Jordan Peterson. It's a hierarchy of development of the self-logos to excellence of phronesis. And no good man would want to restrict anyone from participating. Even if they were brown, even if they were a woman, even if they weren't Christian. Jordan Peterson, Ben Shapiro, everyone at Fox News. A good man would never restrict anyone from virtue. As a principle. So what are we learning? The human condition tells us, gives us the conditions for a few different things. Number one, having a problem so that we can, number two, master the art of the logos and dialectic in order to remove them. Number three, realize that's an inversion of the true logos to introduce us to this game of finding the true nature of the self, the true nature of how to be a friend, the true nature of how to speak well and not speak bad, the dialectic, to reach our highest destiny, purpose, goal, the state of being of the good self, or phronesis, functioning as a good daemon through the art of all arts, the dialectic. So, when Anytos came in, Meno was a bit stuck. Actually, where was he? When Anytos came in, we were talking with Meno about oh yes, we hit our question. Right. Wait, hang on. Yes, we just showed that it wasn't innate. Some people are not, you're not innately born virtuous. Otherwise, we'd have big castles and towers full of the smart babies. We'd protect them more than gold. So it's not innate. It's not knowledge. If virtue was knowledge, it'd be an easy question. Is it teachable? No, it's rememberable. It's learnable. But yes, because it's knowledge. But that's not our question. So, who are the teachers of this virtue? Does it appear to you that there are no teachers of virtue? So that's the question. So another take to find out whether it's teachable is, well, if it is teachable, surely at some stage there'd be a teacher of it. And everyone wants to be good, right? So there'd be students too. So that was our new tact to answer the question. Seeing as the conclusion that we came to that it's beyond knowing was kind of over Meno's head a bit. We had to do all the work, what we're doing, good for us. Well done for everyone. To understand what it's meant by having an existence and a reality that's knowable but not knowable, that's the puzzle. But we had to restart again. Well, if it's teachable, where are the teachers? That's where Anytos came in. So we're wondering next time. So up until now, Meno has been really struggling and kind of fighting against, well, not fighting, because he's still staying. Every time he insults Socrates or tries to take over the conversation, or Socrates invites him back into the conversation, and he does. So perhaps that's why, Socrates said, I must relate to you. Maybe Meno met certain conditions such that, as we read on page 8, there was some sort of obligation, kind of like Parmenides' obligation to run through the hypotheses with Parmenides when Parmenides, Socrates' teacher, ran through all 9 hypotheses for him in a rare thing because Socrates met some sort of conditions where he was compelled to. He must do it. What is that compulsion? What is that rule? I don't know yet, but if you know, please share in the Discord or the chat. But here he talks, I must reply. So like if there were these heuristic or antagonizing debate bro idiots, I would say, I've answered correctly. It's your work to use the logos to refute me. Don't say it's my belief that this. Well, I suggest that. Well, in my opinion, no. I have told the truth. You have to take up the logos to refute me. Don't lie. Don't use opinions. Don't use beliefs. Take up the logos. But if we were friends, so our question is, what condition of friendship was met by Meno such that Socrates said he must reply in the more gentle way of the dialectician, which is the only way to reach truth. Only way. That's huge. So it's not a personal preference. It's not the Jewish way and the Muslim way and the Christian way, and you've got to kill the bad ways and blindly support the other. No, there's one way. It's open to all. The way of understanding. The gentle, friendly way of the dialectic. There are some conditions some people will meet that will make them true friends. And Socrates recognizes an obligation to practice this with them. Equally so, if you're able to make that judgment and you find someone meets this, whatever this condition might be for this kind of true friendship, maybe you will feel compelled to practice the dialectic with them. And I really encourage you to do so. And I also encourage you to send your feedback. What was it like? Did you ever feel compelled to practice the dialectic even though it's new or weird or different? Because someone was showing that they were speaking in good faith and they were actually interested in understanding. They may be as blocked as Meno and they may hurl insults at you every now and again, but every time you invite them back in, they take the challenge, they come back in, they don't run away like Alan Watts and the other people, who do we mention? Albert Ellis and those other people. They're struggling and they might be full of ignorance, but every time you invite them to participate as a friend in good faith in the dialectic, they take it up. What's that obligation? Is that part of being daemon-like? So I encourage you to try that out and practice it with such friends and let me know, was it a success? Was it a failure? Where did you miss the mark? Did you find blocks? Did you notice your pathologos, negative states of mind or kaka daemon thoughts come up? Or anti-phronesis states of mind come up to block you when you were trying to function in the best kind of a way? Good. I hope you took notes, because those notes are going to be useful, because that's the material, that's the pieces. While we're collecting all of the highest self words, phronesis, knowledge, justice, virtue, excellence, we're using the highest possible words, structuring them with the dialectic to reach truth, the only way to reach truth. By the way, Parmenides says the same thing to Socrates in the Parmenides book too. So we mine the text for these highest words and try and use them as best we can, especially as they have scope. Whatever level you'll find yourself on, you'll find something to resonate with because it has that scope. We talked about that last time. Equally so, there's an inverse scope that has an even more pervasive scope from the bottom corner of this little box. The pathologos. We also have to mine something for the terms for this, that we can then rearrange according to the dialectic, the gentle, friendly way to reach truth. So the looking for clues or the mining for terms is the same but different, or like, or analogical. Only one is the distorted version, and we find the material by pursuing this kind of virtue, our highest goals, trying to talk with the dialectic as best we can, and then seeing the thoughts and states of mind that are negative, blocking or limiting that come up during, before or after. That's gold. That's the material. That will allow us to do the most important thing we can do, free ourselves from our false belief, giving us freedom. Also, it can invite us to the other game because it's the exact same thing, except not the terms about states of mind, words, and functioning that limit us, but states of mind, phronesis, terms, justice, beauty, knowledge, functioning like a daemon, the way of the dialectician. That is the highest. That has scope over everything in this life and beyond. Therefore, what we're here for. Necessarily, of course, because it's the virtue or excellence or telos, final goal, endpoint of what we're here for as human beings. Isn't that neat? That our problems are understandable. Our problems are here for a reason to help our soul, but also have another reason while we're here to reflect our higher purpose, the self. To know the one self or the good self through the logos and a state of being called phronesis, with an art of the dialectic, which is a way of relating as a true friend and lover, the true art of the dialectician. Thank you so much for joining me. And I wonder if Meno looking on the same way he looked on with the conversation with the slave boy might have helped him come to terms with aporia, or being stung, not having all the answers, being at a loss but curious and wondering. Maybe he needed to go through that conversation first with Socrates and come to the conclusion that it's good to be stung and wondering. But he was fighting against it and saying he was, but wasn't really. But maybe the time of reflection and also seeing it in another person having the slave boy go through it, maybe that helped him change his mind. Maybe this belief that you can't change your mind, you're one of us, you're a Republican, you're a Christian, you're a Smith, was putting him on the spot. So it was not the ideal conditions for him to change his mind, but maybe seeing the slave boy change his mind and be made better and be happy about the whole thing, thumbs up. Maybe that's kind of a space where you can feel not pressure, especially because he considers, like, he's a debate bro. That's what he learned at school. How to lie. The same thing we have now. We have business school and marketing school, and it's not the logos. I did economics. Day one, I knew they were lying. They said, well, the models are all based on lies. It's stupid. So if that's what he thinks education is, how to talk like this.
Have you read Brand at all? Have you read Nagel? What about Scanlon? Have you read Scanlon or Scruton or Edmund Burke? Have you read C.S. Lewis? Have you read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe? Have you read Immanuel Kant? So you know Flick.
What has this got to do with Bob's Burgers?
If that is the way that people are taught, how to collect buzzwords or names or authority figures to justify the ignorance you're already carrying, yes, then he's come into this maybe as a debate bro, like a heuristic and antagonistic kind. But he didn't actually go all the way in. He said, Socrates, what if I were to say this? So maybe there's still something of himself trying to get through that. But if that's how he was raised, what's the worst thing you can do? Be seen to be wrong in public. Because then someone with power will say, oh, look, the Palestinians made a slight mistake. They weren't perfect victims in our many, many decades of torture and enslavement. Well, you know what that means? You were wrong about something, so we get to punish you. We're gonna genocide you and take all your shit now. That's the way of being of ignorance and oppression. So maybe, I'm just guessing here, this is a hypothesis, that would make it difficult for Meno to actually admit he was wrong about something and change his mind and become a different person. You can't be a different person if you're identified with it, so maybe he's not completely identified with it. He recognizes it's not him, it's just a way of thinking, it's just a belief. But maybe talking to somebody else and walking them through it helped Meno, the slave boy. So now that angry Anytos has powered out after threatening to kill Socrates, which he actually succeeds in at the end of Socrates' life, maybe Meno is benefited by watching as an onlooker, passively. Not passively, but not as the one in the hot seat. Maybe the absurdity of Anytos coming to a conclusion together through the dialectic and then getting pissed because it wasn't a conclusion he already agreed with. Maybe the absurdity and the baby brain, the childishness of that woke Meno up, showed him something. And that's our question for next time. What's Meno's reaction to seeing this whole thing play out in front of him? What's your reaction to seeing this all play out in front of you? Please leave comments in comment section or in the Discord. What's the effect on Meno? How is he going to function now? Is it going to be different? And ultimately, is he going to be made betterer? Because that's what we do. Virtue makes people more virtuous. So all this punishment that makes people sad and upset is what ignorance does. Sickness makes other people sick. So there's no virtue behind any capitalist or fascist or genocidal regime because they're not making the people under their care betterer. But virtue, the daemon, the logos, and the way of the dialectician, phronesis, does. Necessarily. In the same way, hot things, fire makes things hot, ice makes things cold. Good people make people good people. Has Meno been made more gooder, betterer? I like betterer. It's one of the words that Pierre gave us as a clue to understand phronesis. The big one, the question on the table. So we did get a bit of help from Pierre, so we can thank him for that. Thank you, Pierre. Is Meno changed? Is he made betterer? Or is he brought more into alignment and harmony with the Logos and the friendly, true, loving way of the dialectic? Exciting trailer and teaser. That's what we're doing next time. I hope to see you then. I hope you've got lots to wonder about. And again, join the Discord if you want. There's a link below. And share the feedback with your community. Find good friends to practice this way. And also to reflect on your experiences. Remember, go out and do it, but spend at least as much time reflecting on it. Experience and ousia. It's the two. And if you connect with, I know that there are some Twitch communities out there that have really good, interesting people. And open-minded people. They're the best kinds. So maybe we'll find people there on our Discord community. And if you are a good person, or if you're loving this or interested in this, you're one of them. So add to that population so that we can practice this, do what we're here to do, and maybe even reach the excellence and virtue of humanity. But sharing your feedback is really nice too. It's nice to know you're not in it alone. Even if things go terribly wrong, disastrously wrong, you can laugh about it with us as we reflect on it and understand it. It's a win-win.
It's a win-win.
On that note, thank you once again. Key players today, Phoenix Stuffy was just Cuddle Stuffy today. And I think, did we see Chicken? But T-Rex was around, and so he was the main player. He gets the applause. Thank you, T-Rex Stuffy. Thank you once again, and I'll see you next time. Bye.